Welcome to another episode of the Career Talks podcast. I'm your host, Orlando Haynes, and each and every week I bring you amazing guests with amazing actionable advice, not only for your career, but for your life. And today you're looking at her with me on screen. You know who this is. Massive following on YouTube, career advice guru who's making a shift. And I'm excited to talk about her brand new book, The Quiet Achiever, Miss Linda Raynier. How are you?
I'm
Doing
good,
good. And let me ask, did
Orlando.
I
Thank you
pronounce
so
your
much for
last name
having me.
correctly?
How are you doing?
Okay.
It's my
Rayner.
husband's last
Okay.
name, and he pronounces it as Rayner. It's
Okay,
nothing,
Rayner. I'll
no
make sure I get that
fancy,
correct. No worries,
accent.
but I appreciate that. So, how are you? And I asked you this before we got on, but I wanted to make sure I got this as we're filming this episode is how's the journey been for your brand new book launch?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So, for those who don't know, I have a book coming out October 14th. It's called The Quiet Achiever, my very first book. And I have been in this process, Orlando, of launching this book over the last 3 months, I would say it's been. But the book journey started 2 years ago, really, when I was reached out to
Mm-hmm.
by Wiley. I mean, there's a whole backstory about that too, in terms of how I got this book deal. Um, Essentially, I was sleeping one night in the middle of the night, 5 a.m. Or early morning, I would say 5 a.m. I had this vivid dream, and essentially it felt as though my eyes were open, but I knew I was sleeping, and I was looking up at the top of my ceiling in my bedroom, and I see what looks to
Mm-hmm.
be like one of my journals. I happen to have it here. This exact journal I saw floating in the ceiling, right by near the ceiling, and it had the words
Mm.
"Express Your Inner Confidence" by Linda Rayner. And I thought, oh, even in the dream, I was like, that looks like a book that I've written, but that's my journal. Okay, whatever. I wake up and I vividly still could see it in my mind, and I said, you know what? I'm going to take that as a sign. This was in the middle of 2023. And I decided to go down the rabbit hole of looking into how to write a book, how to get a publisher, how to get an agent. What does this even entail? And I started to get a little deflated because I realized, oh, this is going to be a long journey. If I'm going to write this book, I have to come up with a manuscript. I have to get publishers to want me. I have to negotiate a book deal if they even give me one. And this was by around November or so that I started to kind of put the idea on the back burner. But within a few weeks, I kid you not, I got an email out of the blue from the publisher, Wiley, in this case. They reached out to me. I thought it was spam because I thought that maybe I had put
Mm-hmm.
in my email when I was researching to some websites, and I thought they were pretending to be a publisher, saying that they wanted to partner with me. And I didn't even know what that meant. Turns out it was legit. I jumped on a Zoom call with the editor. She said she had found my YouTube channel. She had found my stuff online. And then she asked me point blank, Linda, have you ever thought of writing a book? Because if you have, we'd love to publish it. And so I thought, wow, okay, that's a sign. If I mean, that dream clearly meant to happen for a reason. And I did all this research because I was able to turn around a book proposal,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you have to have, as it's essentially like a business proposal as to why you want to write this book and who it's going to serve. I was able to turn that around within 24 hours, and they were so amazed with it. They said it was incredible, and then we ended up working out a book deal. So, anyways, I've been on this journey of writing this book. I finished the book back in May. I only started late last year, finished in May, and then I've been promoting it ever since. And we've already gotten to number 7 in Canada as an Amazon bestseller under the work-life balance and business category, number 9 in the US on Amazon. And then, we've had 700 plus pre-orders so far. Hopefully that will continue to grow until the launch and further beyond. But I'm very excited, and yeah, that's how it's been. It's also been exhausting, promoting one thing, which is my book. A $30 book, I feel is more exhausting than promoting my coaching programs at
That's
times.
amazing.
But
So I want to peel that back because you
it's
said a
all good.
lot in that, and I want to make sure people don't miss pretty much
Yes.
several things that resonated with me, like the power of belief, right? And that whole thing, you've had that dream, and so it manifested itself. But so you were doing the research, but you never outreach to any publications, any publishing companies. Okay.
I did not. No. Actually, Hay House did reach out, not reach out, sorry. Hay House was holding a writer's workshop. This
Hmm.
is something they do, I think, once or twice a year where it's completely free and you actually learn the process of how to write a book, how to outline your book, how to get a publisher. I
Hmm.
mean, I think it's their marketing, their way of marketing their brand to potential writers. But it was so beneficial because it was exactly during that time that I really wanted to learn more about how to write a book. But I didn't move forward with that or do anything with them. It was
Hmm.
just more, I just learned online and understood the process. But no, I did not. I did not reach out to anyone explicitly.
And so
They
what you
came
saw
to
in your
me. This
dream, was
is
that the original
a fact.
title before you switched it to Quiet Achiever?
Yeah, what's
Hmm.
so funny when I think about it now, Express Your Inner Confidence is exactly what this book, The Quiet Achiever, is about. But The Quiet Achiever is more specific to the individual who's reading it. So, to define Quiet Achiever, over the last 10 years of me running my career coaching business and having gained this big following on YouTube and all of these things, I have really been drawn to a certain type of audience. And that audience I would call quiet achievers. Quiet in the sense that we're introverted, we keep to ourselves. We prefer our own energy. So I'm very much a quiet achiever as well. I'm an introvert. People don't realize that, but I am. And then the other side of me is a high achiever. I'm very driven, goal oriented, ambitious. I have visions and goals for myself. And so, society growing up in this culture that we're in, they've always
Hmm.
rewarded, what I've observed at least, loud achievers. Those who are very extroverted, very, very charismatic, they put themselves out there and they get what they want and they're big go-getters. But quiet achievers exist too. We're also go-getters, but we just aren't the type to necessarily speak up as much, or we're not there to articulate and always talk about ourselves. We're not there to sell ourselves. We're there to be observers. We are deep thinkers. We are very reflective. And in the workplace, when it comes to individuals, professionals that I've worked with over the years, these are the ones who I find, they're working hard. They're putting all their hours in, their effort into their work and delivering good work, but they're not getting the opportunities that they deserve, or that they are not moving up into the roles that they want to move up into, or they're just not feeling recognized and seen and as truly valuable on their teams. They're seen
Hmm.
as the doers rather than the leaders. And that's what I really feel drawn to, helping quiet achievers in now, is helping them to see their inner light, their the amazing things that they carry within themselves, and bringing that to the surface. I really want to help quiet achievers who are feeling that self-doubt, that anxiety, to learn how to overcome that, to really
Hmm.
unleash that. I mean, it's almost like you have to unblock yourself to then become more of who you authentically are. And it's because I've gone through this journey for myself, in all honesty, Orlando. And that is now the message that I feel I want to share with the
So
world.
was that some of
Those
the
quiet
the
achievers that can
founding
resonate with that.
motivation for you to write this book, a combination of your personal journey as well as whom you coached throughout your coaching programs for the past 10 years, and on top of the dream?
Yes, right. So when I first, actually,
Hmm.
the first draft that I did, first few chapters that I wrote, was purely just about helping professionals to get promoted at work. And I thought, okay, this is what my book is going to be about, because maybe this is what my audience wants. But as I was writing the book, there's something that happens to you when you go through the book writing process. It
Hmm.
feels as though messages were starting to come through, because I was open to, what am I going to share with people in this book? And so I guess I was allowing my intuition to kind of play a role, and the universe, God, whoever, to stream through me as well. And I started feeling very strongly that this
Hmm.
book is not just about helping people to get promoted. That could be one avenue if that's what they want, but ultimately it's more about helping people to unblock their fear-based beliefs, release them, and then discover their authentic confidence. And so that was when I decided to go back to Wiley, and I said, I'm going to have to push back the deadline. I'm sorry,
Wow.
but I'm going to have to rewrite all these chapters. I wrote 5 chapters. I'm going to rewrite all of them, and I want to start from scratch, and the book is going to be different. And so that's what happened. And so now the book, Express Your Inner Confidence, is really the core of what this book is about. But it's called The Quiet Achiever: Your Journey to Authentic Confidence. And in it, I walk people through my own experience as well as the experiences of my clients, but really more so through this framework that I've never really openly shared on my YouTube channel before. This is all new. This is all part of this new pivot that I'm doing, where it's really about, how do we go from where you are right now? You're feeling stuck, feeling stagnant, feeling lost, especially in this work world that is changing so rapidly right now, with AI coming onto the scene, with people losing their jobs, companies are downsizing. People are feeling this sense of instability, insecurity within themselves, this identity crisis in many ways. Quiet achievers who have built their identities on their careers are now having to face the potential that their career is no longer going to be that foundation for who they are and who they
Hmm.
show up as in the world. And so what needs to happen? It means we all need to turn inward. We all need to look within. We need to discover who we really are, so that for this next phase in our lives, whatever this next career is, or this next job or promotion, or whatever it is that you do next, you have more of a solid grounding, that you're not leaning on this external job to give you a sense of identity, that you know who you are from within, and you're able to express that naturally, authentically. And a lot of quiet achievers are very blocked when it comes to speaking up, when it comes to sharing their truth, when it comes to even giving opinions at work or giving ideas, because they're always feeling as though they're going to be judged, criticized, that they're going to say something wrong. And so my message for them in this book is to help them to really unblock those beliefs that they're telling themselves, that are causing them to not be able to express themselves. So it really is, again, about expressing your inner confidence. You
Hmm.
have confidence within you. You
Love that.
just need to
So let me
access
ask you
it.
this. So
And
I
from there,
think
you can
most
express it.
books, and it depends on the type of book that is possibly tactical and personal, that it resonates with people when they can, one, see themselves not only in the content, but the actual author. Did you feel as though you were sharing and being more transparent of your personal journeys in this book that most folks would not necessarily see through your content, throughout the years? Mm.
Absolutely. To be honest, this book has been the catalyst, and kind of like this um, Pandora's box, I guess. I've
Mhm.
opened up this Pandora's box to having to be more vulnerable, and sharing who I really am from that authentic perspective. Because the truth is, Orlando, up until now, well, not up until now, but up until maybe the last couple of years, I've always been known as Linda Rayner, the career strategist that helps people to interview well and get jobs. That's been that sort of one-dimensional identity that I've built for myself online. And it's been in the last 5 years where lots of things have changed for me. I've become a mom to two boys who are now 4 and 5.
Mm.
My husband went through his own health challenge, which now he's deemed a miracle. I have had to go through my own identity crisis, in terms of realizing that my self-worth is not just based on the money that I make or the reputation that I've built for myself, that my self-worth comes from within. I've had to go through a whole deep inner healing journey, that I am no longer the same person that people know me as from, 9, 10 years ago. And writing this book has allowed me, it's been this gateway of allowing me to be more expressive and honest about who I am now, who I'm showing up as now, and how I want to help people moving forward. And it's much deeper than just
Mhm.
getting a job, because the truth is, we could talk about this, but I really feel like the world of work is changing so much that, there might not be that job that you
Yeah.
did waiting for you, but there might be a different type of job, but that will require you to stretch yourself in a different way too, to use more of your human skills, because AI is going to do more of the technical. And that's my whole theory about that. But I
Yeah,
genuinely believe that
let's open
tuning
that
into yourself
box
is what's going
because
to
I
be the key.
think it's crucial, especially in what I call the career economy and the landscape that we're in, is that with AI, which shocks me at the same time that people are still fearful when we've always been through technology changes. If you've lived 30, 20, you've seen different changes in technologies from appliances, etc. Right? Things gotten better, more efficient, smaller. But I think the fear of what's probably paralyzing people, and let me know your thoughts on this, is that this is the one big tech monster that they feel is going to wipe out their careers, right? That's been the narrative for a while. And so speak to the quiet achiever who can say, no, you can leverage
Hmm.
this as a tool. And here are some, maybe some practical steps I think you should start to look at, as AI starts to integrate more of our day to day life.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, there's a few things going on here. So, if we're talking about I mean, this is the reason why there's fear is because AI
Mhm.
right now, as we can see, it is so extremely powerful. It is capable of doing so many things that we couldn't even have imagined just like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, well, before it came out, whatever time frame it was before it came out. I'm still very new to AI, I would say, but then again, it's integrated into my life so seamlessly, that I can understand that there's fear there because people can feel that they're going to be replaced. But what I also see is that it's not as though jobs are going to be completely wiped out.
Mhm.
I do feel that there's going to be different jobs or opportunities that are going to come up as a result of AI that AI just still can't do. And what is the difference between us as humans versus AI? It's the fact that we're human, the fact that we have empathy, the fact that we have these innate natural abilities that to relate to one another, to connect with humans, to have that that emotional intelligence that AI doesn't necessarily have. AI is just it really is like a robot that's been trained and taught certain things, but can it think to the level and feel to the level that a human can? I don't believe so. And so what that means though for quiet achievers is so many quiet achievers have leveraged and relied upon their own technical skills to get them further along in their careers. And that's where I would say you want to think about leveling up, not necessarily about the technical skills in terms of what you're doing right now and leveling. Yes, that's one, like, figuring out, okay, what are the new technical things that I could learn that I'm
Mhm.
interested in? Don't just learn them for the sake of learning them, but that you're also interested in, that you feel that you could leverage and use. That's one. But the other aspect is we need to lean more into our humanness. And I don't know if that's a real word, but we need to lean more into what is it that AI can't do. Well, AI is not going to be able to necessarily manage itself. If we're going to have multiple AI platforms doing the type of work that we used to be able to do, there's still going to need to be a human element in that's monitoring, that's reviewing, that's seeing whether the stuff that it's spitting out is making sense. And this is just me from a very, you know, uh, not
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
expert perspective. Like I'm just looking at it from the perspective of just like looking at ChatGPT and different forms of ChatGPT and how would a human operate with that? We still need people to have that ability to think from a human perspective. And so it just means that we need to cultivate more of that within ourselves. If we're going to be able to thrive in this next version or a phase that we're going through, it really has to do with trusting yourself, trusting your own instincts, learning how to trust yourself, tuning into your intuition. And it's not just logic anymore. It's also about connecting with that part of you that knows how someone else is going to feel if they were to be presented with a certain type of information that AI has spat out. It's having that ability to intuitively and empathically understand others. So that I feel is the area that quiet achievers have an opportunity to grow in more, because we've been taught growing up to just ignore our intuition, ignore that inner voice, just focus only on logic, just do the things, and essentially operate as robots in many ways in our careers, and just work hard, put your head down, you'll be successful. And yes, it's gotten us to a certain level, but for many quiet achievers, they're going to feel stuck, or they may already be feeling stuck. And in order to move into this next level where you can then navigate the new jobs that might be available, or do something of your own, or leverage what you have, but still you're going to have to operate and function in a new way. It means turning inward. It means getting clear on what are the things that are blocking you right now, because to move and change into something new requires,
Mm.
yes, courage, but also self-awareness. And if you're not self-aware, then you are going to hit more blocks along the way than if you just did some work at the beginning to get a little bit clearer within yourself, so that you have a little bit more sense of direction and you
I
don't
love what you
feel so
said. Super
afraid and scared
interesting,
every
and
step of
how
the
you
way.
unpack that,
I hope
because
that
you
makes
said
sense.
something about the humanness, right, and the connectivity, really the human intuition on how someone would feel receiving a certain type of information. And I think when you brought up ChatGPT specifically, like that's a great way to, right, because ChatGPT is all based on prompts. What do we put into it to get the output we need? Like leveraging that kind of thinking, turning it into a prompt that could become a white paper, a document, some type of training, for corporate America, all people alike. And so I think you said something very, very unique, and I want to make sure people don't miss that the human part can have that innate ability again to determine or predetermine or perceive what another human may feel like, because robots can't do that, but we can see, okay, they might not accept that in a positive way,
Yes.
but through me being a human, let me see how I can rephrase that so it's more accepting amongst people who are quiet achievers. Yeah, I think that's the way I receive what you said, and I think that's so powerful. And so, in line with that, go ahead. If you have a comment on that, go ahead.
Yes. No, I mean, I love how you, paraphrased it and
What would you
summarized
say
that.
some
Yes,
of the
and that is exactly the
misconceptions
point.
are of a quiet achiever, especially in the corporate landscape?
The biggest misconception is that they're
Mm,
not ready for that next level. And in the sense that so from a leader's perspective, they're looking at their quiet achiever saying, yes, he or she is working hard, they're putting in the good work, but maybe that's, in their mind, they're thinking they're happy enough with just doing that. They don't recognize and see that quiet achievers
mm,
actually secretly aren't, they're not expressing it maybe, but they do want that next level. They do want to move up. They do want that, that challenge. They do see themselves as one day being a director or a VP. They have that desire, but the misconception is that they don't necessarily want that. That they seem to be happy where they're at because they're working so hard in that role, and that seems to be enough for them, or fulfilling enough for them. And on top of that, it's because of the fact that they're not expressing their desires as openly as maybe their loud counterparts or loud achiever counterparts. And so it just, that impression is that they don't actually want to move up, or they don't want that next challenge, but they do. And this is where I really feel compelled. And again, like, the world of work is changing. Getting a promotion, moving up, like that still is existing, but I don't know how many more years it'll take. That maybe that doesn't even really come into play anymore. It's going to be more about what opportunities are you going to take on for yourself, find for yourself. Meaning, if people end up becoming more freelancers or consultants in a way, it's not going to be about, oh, I'm waiting for someone to give me that next level promotion. It's more like, how do I go out and get that opportunity for myself? Whatever that level is, it's more about you being more proactive. So I feel like there's this phase that we're in where people need to learn, okay, how to ask for what you want and get what you want, how to, level up yourself to get there. But then eventually
hmm
it's going to be a playing ground. And this is, again, my own perspective. We're going to be on this fair, certain fair or unfair, I don't know, but we're going to be on the same playing field where opportunities are determinant on how you go after them. how you approach them rather than waiting for them to come to you, if that makes sense. So it means that you need to show up differently. And quiet achievers will have to really step it up from a communications perspective, the way that they express themselves, the way that they ask for things, the way they negotiate, the way that they demonstrate their value. All of that is going to come into play if they're going to want to really thrive
So I
in
want to
their
throw a
careers, I would say, in the next
curveball
few years.
personal question at you, and I think you'll knock it out the park. And so, because when people hear this episode or watch it and they're reading your book and they're saying, again, to my earlier point, I resonate so much with what's in here and with Linda. So, you now being an entrepreneur and a quiet achiever, there was a journey where you knew you had to break out of that shell for whatever reason, to promote the book, to get your content out there, to have these interviews. What's been that transition like um, throughout the years, where people can say, okay, oh, I can do that. Yes, yeah, I can do that. So I don't need to be necessarily loud, but I can do exactly what Linda did to move my career forward. Hmm.
Right. Well, I can go back to when I was still in the corporate world because I know that's most relevant for those that are in the corporate world. When I was in the corporate world, I started off in as a CPA working at a big four accounting firm. I thought, based on my immigrant parents and the mindset that I was taught, just work hard, study hard, get a good job, one that's stable and prestigious, and you'll live happily ever after. And I believed that, and I went down the CPA path, and I was like, why am I not feeling happy? Why does this not feel like happily ever after? I'm actually miserable. And it wasn't because of necessarily, part of it was because I was just in the wrong field. That's actually the biggest part. I was not doing the work that aligned with my strengths, but I didn't know necessarily what my strengths were fully because, in your early 20s, you're still learning and you're always learning in life. But at that point, you're just fresh out of school. You're still figuring things out. So after the accounting thing, I realized, okay, if this is not going to be the path, what am I going to do? So I had to dig deep early on in those years. And this is my early to mid 20s where I had to ask myself, what do I think I would be good at? What do I feel? And so there was already in me an inner voice that was telling me that I needed to look within and ask myself these harder questions to get clarity. And when I did my own little visualization exercise, I saw myself working with people. I saw myself talking to people. I felt as it looked as though I was, conversing and helping them with something and guiding them,
Hmm.
almost counseling them. Anyways, I didn't really know what that meant, but within a short period of time, I landed an opportunity as a recruiter where they were looking for CPAs specifically because the types of candidates that we were placing were CPAs all the way up to CFO level. And they wanted someone with that background. And I thought, okay, let me try because I've always been good at interviewing for jobs. I ended up getting all four big four accounting firms to give me job offers back in university. So I knew I was good at interviewing. I knew how to do resumes. I've always had that skill set. And so I thought I could help. I could do this. I could do this recruiting thing. And I was right. It was just a gut feeling. I ended up breaking records, doing really well in that career, in that job as a recruiter. And what ended up happening though, as someone who is a quiet achiever, who's that high achiever, I felt I've hit all hit all these records. I've, gotten all these awards. I've made this money, but now what? I feel like, am I going to do this for the rest of my life? I feel like there's something more. And I think a lot of quiet achievers, maybe right now, they're feeling that there is something more I could do. And so again, I went inwards and I asked myself, what would that look like? And so that vision that I had before of me helping people came back, but I got a little bit more detail into it. I tuned in and I was able to see that, oh, I was working for myself. I wasn't working for a company anymore. I didn't see myself going downtown the way that I was doing, working 9 to 5 in a big corporate office. I saw myself working at home, working my own hours, helping people, putting myself online. I also saw myself sitting in front of a camera and putting myself on YouTube, which I'll tell you, this was
Yeah.
2016, Orlando. Not everyone under the sun like they are now was on YouTube in 2016. So I was one of the very small group of career coaches that lived on YouTube back then. And within my third, fourth video, the video called Tell Me About Yourself, how to answer that question. It's still to this day my top
Wow.
performing video. I ended up getting, now it's at 20 something million views, but that ended up skyrocketing my whole brand online, and it created my business. Essentially, I built 7-figure business selling courses, doing one-on-one coaching, and all of that. But in terms of, back to your question, what can a quiet achiever do practically to help them to shift and pivot? As you can see, I've made several pivots, and I'm currently in a new pivot of now being an author and a speaker and sharing this new message of the quiet achiever. It's comes down to listening to your inner guidance. It comes down to tuning. Give yourself that opportunity to sit and really reflect and ask yourself, what does my heart want? Because so often we don't listen to our hearts. We don't even tune in to ask ourselves what we want. It's more about what our brain is telling us we think we should want, because it's living from a place of fear. We've fed it so many fear-based beliefs that that's how we're functioning. We're functioning from a foundation of fear rather than desire, openness, expansion, all of those wonderful things. And so that is the first thing I would say a quiet achiever can do if they're feeling like they want to make a pivot. It's to tune into yourself and don't ask anyone else. Ask
That's
yourself
so
what
good.
you want
And to your
and
earlier
what that
point
looks
about
like.
when you started your YouTube journey, I remember when I came across your content, I was like, she has how many followers as a career coach? Because I always seen entrepreneurship, this, and the third. And yours, and probably still to this day, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, that I'm aware of. Career coaching channel. And so I was like, through career coaching, I was like, really? I was like, I had no clue that this can get so large on YouTube, because it wasn't that kind of platform yet. It was still, like you said, fairly new. And so I was just like, this is not real. This is no way. I was like, there's no way. I was like, I know this stuff. I was like, well, I don't know that. But yeah, I was like, so I was learning. So I've been consuming your content for years. And so just a small full circle moment. But I was just like, yeah, it was completely shocked to see that level of growth from this content, because it was everything else. But to your point, though, I love the fact that people can see that, because again, I want people to be able to see that. And for folks who may say, look at Linda now, like she's doing this, she's done that. They might get confused with quiet achiever / introvert. And I believe you might know Lisa Appia also. And I gave her a nickname. She's in Canada as well, and I gave her the nickname because she speaks to introverts. And I said, AKA the well-known introvert, right? Because she also has her own business. And so people can say, well, no, I'm not necessarily need to be quiet all the time. There are times where I can speak and share my voice and my opinion, but doesn't mean I have to completely change who I am.
That's right. No, you don't. And that's part of the
Mm-hmm.
whole idea of stepping into your authentic confidence that I really want people to grasp, because authenticity, what I'm discovering and still learning, authenticity is that it factor that is going
Mm-hmm.
to bring people to you, bring opportunities to you, bring whatever it is that you're wanting or that you're meant to go after. If you are authentic and you are fully at ease and comfortable within yourself, even though there are going to be times that you're nervous or scared or whatever, but you know yourself at a deeper level and you're not basing your self-worth on other people's opinions and getting validation from others or even from the numbers. My million subscribers, yeah, that's a great number, but I don't really identify with that, because I've had to look within and ask myself, well, does that mean anything for me in terms of, yes, it means that, okay, I've been consistent. I've done good work of offering value to people, but,
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a deeper part of me that has nothing to do with the numbers. And that is really what I think is the key. And even in the last 10 years, if you ask me like why or how did I get to that level of a million subscribers, I'm like 999 right now. Just need like a little bit more. It's I would say it has to do with when you listen to your intuition and your inner guidance and you follow through with that and you have this genuine desire to add value and to really, you know, you just want it, you're giving with this relaxed sense of abundance. I just had a podcast conversation with Selena Sue this morning, and we talked about her book, Rich Relationships, and the idea of relaxed abundance. If you know, I didn't realize that that was part of my programming too, and how I was offering value on YouTube. I just wanted to give, and ultimately, I knew if I just give, things will come back naturally in some way, shape, or form. And it did, and it has. And so even this book opportunity wouldn't have come without that following, because that's what publishers look at. It's like how big your platforms are and all that. And I'm grateful for that, because I do think that it's now set me up for this
So,
opportunity
in
to
your
share this
space
message moving
of
forward, however that
recognizing
looks.
other quiet achievers, do you think they can change after, pushing to, because like you said, very driven, they have the same aspirations as someone who's more outwardly extroverted and loud about their goals. Do you think that is something that they can change to be like, you know what, I can be that person? Or is that's just an innate character trait of who they are and they just need to navigate it a little better?
I believe that we can shift in an instant if we were willing and ready to. And so those are the two keys, is that you have to be ready and willing and be able to do it. So I think with quiet achievers, part of it is nurture, part of it is nature. Like, we are just like, for example, I'm naturally introverted. I can't have more than 5 conversations a day, otherwise I'm completely wiped. It's just, that's part of my quiet introverted aspect. But the and then the high achiever also, I feel like that's innate within me. I just have this drive, I have this desire to push myself forward and do things and visions and goals. um I think there's part of that that's nature, and then there's the other aspect that's nurture, where we're, I mean, I don't want to put it negatively, but like I said before, society and culture hasn't really rewarded quiet achievers in the workplace and out in the world, because again, it's all about putting yourself out there in sort of that more loud, charismatic, expressive way. And when you're asking, like, can you shift? I genuinely believe that quiet achievers, they don't have to be someone they're not. That's actually not what I advocate for. Don't pretend and be fake. But if you are more of who you are, you own yourself, like own your own qualities, and you know yourself more, that's where that authenticity starts to really shine through. And that's where people feel they feel like they know you, they feel connected to you, they feel safe around you. And when they feel those things, then you don't have to act like anyone else. You just have to show up in a room, speak up when you feel compelled to, share the things that you want to share, and people will listen, just because you're at ease within yourself. Something that I've always said is that people will feel at ease with
I
you
like
if you are at ease within yourself first. If you don't feel comfortable, people aren't going to feel comfortable. And I feel like with you, Orlando, you do a great job of making people feel comfortable. I feel so comfortable just like having this conversation with you right now. You just have this grounded, warm, still presence that is so admirable. And yeah, I just have to say that I just had to point that out, because I think that's a beautiful quality that you have to make people feel safe, seen, heard. And the more that quiet achievers can do that for themselves, the more that they're going to see other people are going
Well,
to see
thank you.
them
Thank you for that, for
and
sure.
recognize them for
And
who they
so,
are.
with that too, how can, oh, let me pose it this way, because certain questions I love to pose to certain guests. You have a room full of corporate executive and leaders, and you're the only presenter, speaker, etc. It's your show. How would you educate them to be more advocates in being able to identify and highlighting and recognizing quiet achievers within the organization? And they need it.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's a
they need
big
to know.
question. But that is actually yes. But I love that. I love that question, and it'll force me to prep for upcoming engagements that I have, actually, where I will be talking to leadership teams and sharing the message of the quiet achiever. And I think the first thing is to set the stage where we all get onto common ground, where I can share instances or experiences that probably these leaders have been in, maybe meetings they've had or conversations they've had where they've noticed the quiet achievers in the room, but they've maybe overlooked them, or that they're maybe what they're thinking when they're interacting with a quiet achiever versus what's actually happening beneath the surface from the perspective of the quiet achiever, what they're feeling. So getting them to understand and see that, oh, this is the other perspective that you're not necessarily realizing is going on. And then from there, it would be about sharing with them why quiet achievers are really, I feel, the next level leaders that a lot of organizations need, because the qualities that quiet achievers bring are the fact that they're deep thinkers, they're highly reflective, they're very observant. And so when it comes to, let's say we're talking about AI, and we talked about, having to monitor and see how AI is what it's spitting out, what it's putting out into the world, like making sure that all makes sense. I do genuinely believe that quiet achievers have that natural innate skill set to be able to determine that. They have the sensitive, empathetic, but also the detail oriented, the observant skills and reflective skills to be able to assess whether things are making sense. And they don't have to do it in a loud way, because if you're just dealing with AI, I mean, you don't necessarily you don't have to be performative in any way. You just have to deliver. And that is why I know this may sound theoretical or vague, but that I genuinely feel like there's a space for that's going to be needed, where quiet achievers are going to be highly requested for certain types of roles where AI is really running the show from the front end, and then we need those people behind the scenes to be monitoring and reviewing and assessing, and quiet achievers are those. And then sharing with them why that's so important, and then how they can nurture the quiet achievers that they have now, because a lot of quiet achievers are feeling underestimated, they're feeling overlooked, they're feeling not recognized, not really valued for what they bring to the table. And it's really about encouraging and sharing with leaders how they can do that for their quiet achievers, so that as things shift and change, they're going to be able to help them go into that next level, get into that next level in their
That's good.
organizations, and continue to thrive.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would think, even just
Yeah.
from a simple, hey, let's give Linda a chance to share her ideas. I know she's worked a lot on this project, and even though her boss, your boss may be in the room, but give us your perspective, like make room for them to share during a meeting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if we're getting down to the granular, absolutely, and I love that you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
In a meeting, quiet achievers will shrink back. They will be afraid to say what they have to say or what they want to say, even though they have great ideas. And it really comes down to being just adding a little bit more, stretching a little bit more warmth to them and encouraging them. I'd love to hear what you have to say. What are your thoughts to that quiet achiever? Just because they feel, if they're not acknowledged or
Right.
asked, and not to say that they have, leaders have to do this every single time, but if you get into the habit of acknowledging them, it gives them a little boost to say, okay, next time I'll just do it on my own. I won't have to, I feel that whatever I do have to say has value. So they'll feel more at ease to say it the next time, to speak up the next time.
Yeah,
But yeah,
now
that's
you just answered the
fantastic
follow-up question, because I was
of
going
you
to
to
ask,
bring that up.
do you feel as though the fear or the holdback may be them initiating and inserting themselves first versus being asked, right? That's a different dynamic there, to where you're being called on, and it's like, oh, okay, so I feel comfortable sharing what I have to say. The fact that you're asking me, now I'm definitely going to say it, versus, hey, I do got something to say. Let me jump in here and insert because everyone else is doing it, but I think my idea has value too. So I think that's a different dynamic and thought process that can help people. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. From a commonality standpoint, when you think about loud achievers and quiet achievers, aside from achieving, wanting to achieve, do you see some cross functional similarities that we're not aware of that you'd be like, hmm, you're on that cusp, or you can actually, someone has the ability to be more, I guess, forward facing or self promoting, but not to the point where it seems like a loud achiever, if that makes sense. Hmm.
Yeah. So you mean, are there similarities between loud and quiet? Okay. I would say, I think when you're a high achiever,
Hmm.
regardless of whether you're introverted or extroverted, you're a high achiever. So it just means you're both probably, you probably have similar goals. If you're in a certain organizational setting, you probably have certain a career goal for yourself, or a direction that you want to head in, and so that might be similar. It's just that, like I said, it's, the workplace, society, culture has always rewarded loud achievers in many ways, in the sense that they speak up, they ask for what they want, they justify it, they promote themselves, they know how to, build those relationships and connect with others. And
Hmm.
naturally, as humans, we're going to be more drawn to them, if because they're going to be more top of mind. They've made themselves visible, and that's the really, I mean, I would say that's the difference. And otherwise, we're all similar. If we're all high achievers, we all want the same things for ourselves, we want to move forward in our lives. um, that's the biggest similarity. But I think, from the differences are pretty big, because as quiet achievers, we've been also programmed to, because we're all already naturally
Hmm.
introverted, we're also going to reflect more on things that we say, how things have gone. And I'm not saying that loud achievers aren't, they're not self-aware or they're not reflective, but I've just known so many quiet achievers to overthink at times, to the point where it blocks them from speaking up. And that, I can only really speak to the differences more than
Hmm.
the similarities, because the loud achiever, they don't have that issue. They're able to express themselves freely, and maybe it's because in childhood they didn't have that, the person that stopped them from speaking their truth, or shut them down, and they were given, free reign to be able to express themselves fully. And I can tell you that this is a cultural thing too, in Eastern culture, Asian culture, South Asian cultures, even certain European, Eastern European, it has always been
Hmm.
about, let your work speak for itself. Don't show off. Don't be cocky. Don't talk about yourself. Let your work speak for itself. And then all of a sudden they go into the Western workplace and they discover, oh my gosh, just working is not enough. It's not going to get me that far unless I start talking about myself, sharing about myself. But then by then, the
Hmm.
programming is so instilled that that makes me sound cocky. That makes me sound like I'm bragging, makes me sound like I'm being fake, I'm lying, I'm embellishing, I'm showing off. And then that's where the issues of insecurities come in. Like, now I feel like I have to be someone else, I have to act differently. And this is why I feel it. No, 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 no. We need to take it back to basics. We need to go deep within. We need to, first of all, understand who you are at the root level. But to do that, we also have to figure out what are the
Hmm.
key beliefs, the fear-based beliefs that you're holding on to, that are causing you to not express yourself. Because I believe, now that you say this, and maybe I'm just, all this whole talk has led me full circle. There's actually quiet achievers and loud achievers. The only difference,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
similarities is that they're actually the same person. They're both high achievers. Just one is blocked and one isn't. And I don't want to use the word blocked in a negative way, but blocked as in emotionally, energetically. One is carrying more fear-based beliefs
Hmm.
about speaking up and sharing their voice than the other. So I love that you asked that question, because I feel like that's a realization for me in this moment right now, is that they're actually the same, but one has fear-based beliefs and energies that they're holding on to, that is causing them to feel cut off from being able to express their voice. Whereas the other, the loud achiever, quote unquote, they're more
Yeah, I think
free. They
that's
feel more
really good.
free to
That's really
express
good,
themselves.
and I'm glad that that epiphany happened, because I also look at it too as the quiet achiever.
Yeah.
You mentioned that they get into that overthinking, analysis paralysis, where the loud achiever is like, I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to take more risk. Though I can
Yes.
see a loud achiever retracting if depending on how their risks are perceived, right? If they're overextending, but they're, pretty much the information they would give either side would be smart, right? Because they're overachievers, they thought it through. They're not just whims, throwing it out there on a whim. But if a loud achiever were to insert themselves more times than not, and just by happenstance or work culture, and it tends to get shut down, I can see how a loud achiever may start to retract, it becoming a quiet achiever. Like, wow, what's happening here? Like, I'm being overlooked, and I'm showing forth the work is here.
Yeah.
I'm raising my hand, which seems to be a key separator too. But when I raise my hand and voice my opinion or ideas, it's rejected over and over. Like, why am I doing this anymore?
Mm. Yes, yes. In that,
Mm,
those types of situations then become very individual, because it could be for that individual, it could be that maybe this place is no longer the place for them. Maybe it's a sign that they're meant to move forward and move on in their careers to do something, more fulfilling, perhaps, if they're not feeling fulfilled in that role and they're not feeling recognized and seen. That could be a situation. But I can see how, we go through circumstances and situations that can cause us, like you said, to retract, to shrink, to feel small.
hmm
And then it scares us. It becomes traumatic for us. And we don't want to then repeat that feeling. And so you can go from loud achiever to quiet achiever. Actually, I feel like one of my clients was that, where she said she used to be able to deliver speeches and presentations. And then all of a sudden, one time in her words, she got a little too overconfident, and she showed up to a presentation with not having
Ooh,
prepared anything, and she realized how unprepared she was, and then it completely scarred her afterwards from delivering any sort of public talk or speech or meeting, presentation. And she struggles now with that, but we're working through that. And so that's good. But at the same time, uh, it really then ultimately comes down to, like I talk about, turning inward. And this is what I talk about in the book, The Quiet Achiever. It really is the process of turning inward, going beneath the surface, identifying those fear-based beliefs, allowing them to rise to the surface. It's like the fever where,
mm,
you're burning up the infection, you're burning up the virus or whatever it is that you have. You let it come out of you, so that then your body can then get back to an equilibrium. And so it's really about, okay, I genuinely believe fear-based beliefs are that type. That's like the infection or the virus that you're carrying. You
yeah,
just need to excrete it in a way. Like,
it
I don't know if
works.
that's the
Yep,
right word.
yep.
You need to get rid of it. Right. You need to and so if you can do that, then what's going to happen is you're going to feel lighter. You're going to feel more calm, more at ease within yourself. Anxiety is because of those fears that we're carrying, and if we can learn to release them, we'll feel much more calm and relaxed. And that's how then in a meeting, in a presentation, we're going to be able to show up more confidently, because we feel more
It's
comfortable and at
amazing
ease
how
with our own,
what you
using
just
our own
said,
voice.
what hit me was there's so much around, like we said at the top of the conversation, belief, but there's such a heavy emotional component to it as well. And it's not driven by, knowledge base. Like these, you're an achiever because you know what you're doing, right? You know the work, you've been executing, but it's those limiting beliefs that then affect your inability to think it through from maybe a logical standpoint or whatever. Your body reacts to it, and there's so much emotional weight that comes with it that you get locked up. And it's, which is interesting to your point, which you said about your
Yes.
client, because that was self inflicted, that they chose not to prepare because they got overconfident. I would think they can just like, okay, lesson learned, and go back and prepare like they used to and fix it. But that was self inflicted, but it rocked them enough to where it's like, oh my God, what do I do? It wasn't externally. Someone didn't say, or maybe they did, someone didn't say, oh, that information you gave was inaccurate. You should have done more research. She just got overzealous, and it's like, oh, I can do this on my own without doing the research. So that's an interesting perspective too, to consider, that she's going through that. even though she can make that quick switch. But, we're all different. Our makeup is different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think
Hmm.
it's just when something takes you by surprise and it really can shatter you, you can either allow it to keep you down, or you can do something about it. And thankfully she's in a place now where she's realizing she's wanting to do something about it. But for some of us, we're not ready to do something about it because it pulls the rug from under you, and you kind of then you start to associate that as your identity, that I'm just not good at speaking up, I'm not good at sharing my opinions, I'm not good at sharing my voice, or my voice doesn't deserve to be heard. And those are the subconscious beliefs that you now begin to identify with, and think that that's just who you are, that you don't even realize you could move out of that. But this is where it's so important to be self-aware, to start realizing you can shift your beliefs at any given moment. If you're willing to be self-aware and figure out what that belief is, that is going to change everything. Because once you bring it to the surface and acknowledge it, it'll dissipate. It will. I swear it works. I mean, what I do also believe, though, is like, it's not just one belief and it's gone forever. Beliefs have different facets, similar to a diamond.
Hmm.
You might polish one side, but then the rest needs to still be polished. So you're going to keep polishing the different facets until fully that entire belief, all the different facets of that belief will, are fully shining, and you don't need it. It's no longer having a hold on you anymore. I mean, that's not the best analogy, but the idea is that the belief is not going to carry that weight anymore, because you've already worked through it, and
I
you've
think that's a
allowed it to
perfect
be
analogy.
acknowledged the way
Almost
that it
like
needs to be.
a chapter for it could have been a chapter of the title, like polish your own diamond, and giving that analogy of one side to the next. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's good. You got to do something with that. That's
I love
good.
that. Oh, yes.
Abs-
I gotta do
Absolutely. So
something with
before we
that.
land the plane, and you've been gracious
Thanks,
enough to give me
Orlando.
so much of your time, because I know you're on this massive run to promote the book, and so um, the question I had before I close out with the final questions would be, um, what would be, if someone read the book, right? Once these people read the book, what would be 1 to 2 takeaways that you would want them to implement immediately?
Okay, so good. It's funny because I am a very practical person. I've always been very
Hmm.
practical. That's always been my YouTube content. It's like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, do these things and you'll get the job. And when it comes to this type of work, it's not necessarily like do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll be fully healed and you'll be this best version, confident version of yourself. But I think there's still, like you said, like what are the immediate sort of steps that they could do? Number one is being willing to open yourself up to the idea that you can shift and change and grow
Mm.
into a next level version of you. What I've been Conversations that I've been having with a lot of quiet achievers is that they didn't even realize that they can be any different than who they are already. That I'm just me. This is me. What do you mean be any different?
Hmm.
And I'm not saying different as in be another different person and be fake, but be more of you, and show up more calmly and authentically as you. And this whole concept of authenticity it's that's where it plays the role. But number one is to be willing and open to recognize that I can things can change for me if I am willing to be more honest with myself. So that's the first. And then the second is, I mean, I have a whole framework and everything, but it really is going to be about
Mm.
allowing yourself to feel all the feelings. Quiet achievers are very good at brushing things under the rug and suppressing and not feeling the hard feelings that we feel beneath the surface. We will just, siphon it away and sort of categorize it, and it doesn't get touched unless a trigger happens. Something in our world triggers that feeling. And I think now, with the world of work changing, it is triggering for people because it's their identity now that's being challenged. I'm no longer this person that was working in this job title and with this company if they lose that opportunity, that job, because of downsizing or whatnot, then now their identity is being, challenged. And so that's the triggering factor. So instead of allowing the external world to start triggering you, why don't you go within and ask yourself, what are the things that are that I'm currently holding on to within myself that already cause me a sense of anxiety, a sense of insecurity, a sense of self-doubt? Explore, being willing to explore and allowing yourself to feel. I
Mm.
mean, those are I'd say, I don't know if I already said it, but that's, if you can do that, allow yourself to feel and be honest with yourself and investigate what that is. Where did that come from? Did this come from my childhood? Did this come from recently? This come from the last 10 years? Why do I think the way I think? Why do I feel the way I feel? You can start to be more of investigative. And I talk about this in the book, being your own investigator, and really look at the clues and put together the clues and understand your story and the timelines of how things have gone for you. Then you get to learn, you're learning more about yourself, and you're opening yourself up to realizing that, okay, that is my story up until now, but that means that I can write the next chapter of my story. I can choose rather than letting the world dictate how things end up for me. I can choose, I can guide, with more self-awareness, with more intention. So I don't know if I really put it into
It
succinct
does, because what
steps,
I
but
get from
hopefully
that
that
is, which is
resonates.
probably the toughest thing for us as individuals to do, is that self-reflection, which you mentioned throughout the conversation, which seems to be the anchoring piece, right? That inner reflection to find, um, you know, what that diamond in us is, and polishing it, and then now activating it. Right. So I think that's super, super crucial. So if anyone's taking anything from this conversation other than the book, is that self-reflection is so crucial, so needed. Two last questions. Yeah, two last questions for you.
Yes, I
Why do
love
you get up?
that.
Or should I say this way? What makes you get up and do what you do?
That's a great question. Somewhere within my heart, I have always known that I have a mission, that there's a reason why I'm here on this earth, that there's a message that I'm here to share, that there are people that are meant to hear it. And I don't know where that comes from, because it's been something that since I started my YouTube channel, I feel like maybe even a little bit before that, actually for sure a little bit before that, because that's why I went on to YouTube, is that I always felt like I was meant, there's something I'm meant to share. And for the last 10 years, I did not know what that was. At first, I thought it was helping people to find jobs, and it served its purpose. But now I realize it's this. And so, and this is something that I'm only just realizing too, Orlando. So I appreciate you asking that, because it is the raw truth, is that I'm realizing this is why I get up in the morning, because there are people that are meant to hear the message that I'm here to share. And, this message could change in the next few years. It could change in 10 years. But for now, this message is important. And that's
Love it.
why I get up in the
And I
morning to
think
do
that's
what
good,
I'm
because
here to do.
why your followers, the people who support you throughout your journey, are evolving with you. And so they're probably at that same turning point, and they're not knowing who to go to. Then now that you're bringing out this part, they're like, oh my God, probably thinking, Linda, thank you so much. I didn't know who to ask or who to reach out to or who to follow. And knowing, again, there's that immediate continued connection, not only through your content, but with you directly. So I appreciate that. Last but not least, where can folks follow you, gather your content, learn more about how to get a copy of The Quiet Achiever?
Yes. So in terms of getting the book, it's available pretty much anywhere where books are sold: Amazon, Indigo, in Canada, or in the US, Barnes and Noble. But I would say head on over to my website, lindarayner.com. The book is there. You can pre-order or order there, depending on when this podcast comes out. And then also my YouTube channel. In the last couple of weeks, it's been a little, I've been putting a lot of podcast interviews like this on my YouTube channel, to share the word about the Quiet Achiever. But I will be going back to my regular programming and putting out content on how to become how to go from quiet to confident, and communication tactics, but also self-confidence and all of that. So my YouTube channel, I would say LinkedIn, you can connect with me.
Love it.
Instagram,
Any
you can
final
connect with
comments,
me. Those are my
encouragement
main
for the quiet
platforms.
achievers?
Final comments is, I would say, this movement that I'm hoping to create is to encourage those of you who identify as quiet achievers to be willing to turn inwards. And I think I've already said that, but if you realize that the world isn't going to give you answers, it all comes from within. If you can start to turn inward and be honest with yourself, that is the greatest place to be and to start with, because you will be opening yourself up to a whole new world and a whole new way of being
I
and
love it.
a whole new
Linda,
life
thank
from
you
that
so much for
perspective.
your time. Watched you again
So
from
yeah.
afar. Now to get to have this conversation with you personally, I consider you a friend now, in a kind of a mentor and following your information. So appreciative of your time.
Yes.
Folks, make sure you are connecting with Linda on YouTube, LinkedIn. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. And get a copy of the book, but make sure you let her know what what your thoughts are and what's changing after you've read the book, what's resonating with you. But most also, make sure you're connecting with me on the Career Talks podcast, as we continue to bring you more amazing content like this each and every week. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Orlando.